following is a broadcast from the global authority in mixed martial arts. The Sherdog Radio Network. The following is a special broadcast exclusively from the Sherdog Radio Network, SRN. You're getting beat down after the bell.
Of UFC 209, Woodley versus Thompson 2 here on the Sherdog Radio Network. Hey, everybody. I'm TJ DeSantis along with Caleb Quinn on this exciting fight night. Maybe not the most exciting fight night right away, but the fifth round of your main events, which took place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. That was pretty fun, pretty exciting. I thought we were actually headed to another draw. I thought we were going to get a 47-47 scorecard, but it was not to be. It is Tyron Woodley who remains your UFC welterweight champion. He gets it done on the scorecards, 48-47 and 47-47. Those are the only two differences, but judges 1 and 3, I guess we don't have the names yet, at least on MMA Decisions where I'm looking, had it 48-47 for the still welterweight champion, and that dissenting judge 47-47. Caleb, I wouldn't be too upset with the 47-47 scorecard. I scored rounds 3 and 5 for Tyron Woodley. I gave him the fifth and final round 10-8. I thought that the amount of punishment that he had was enough to warrant a 10-8 round. It depends on where you come down on 10-8 rounds. I know that the judges have been encouraged to give them. Not a lot of people are on board with that to the extent of if you drop an opponent, does that mean a 10-8? No, I don't think so. But if you drop him repeatedly, volume is there. I mean, Wonderboy, he did what he needed to do to keep the fight from being stopped, but I don't think he prevented a 10-8. How did you score that fifth round?
I had it score the same way that you did. I thought 1, 2, and 4 were kind of like I almost didn't even want to score those because there was so little to go on for judging. But it was Wonderboy that I gave to those rounds. And it was looking like it was just going to be kind of a really lackluster fight, going into a lackluster decision for Wonderboy. And I myself, and I'd love to see the scorecards of the judges to know if they scored the fifth round 10-8 as well.
Yeah, those will be up, I'm sure, momentarily on MMA Decisions, one of the best resources out there. I think you have a potential for a draw, though, if you give round 2 to Thompson. If you had rounds 1, 2, and 4, and you don't give, or you do give the 10-8 to Woodley, it's the same situation we had the first time, where you have 3 rounds for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, 2 rounds for Tyron Woodley, with one of them being a 10-8. I think what we've learned from these two competitors who are, among the elites, if not the two very best at 170 pounds, they're just going to go tit for tat with one another. And in the case of Tyron Woodley, it was interesting tonight that he was honestly, it was almost too tactical for his own good. If he would have fought the way that he did in round number 5, in the second round, there would be no debate if it was Wonderboy Thompson's round or his round. There would be no debate on whether or not Tyron Woodley needed the fifth round to be a 10-8 to steal the fight or to make it a draw. Why do you think he was as plotting as he was early on in the fight? We talked in our pre-fight show that we did earlier today at Sherdog.com. You talked about maybe a mental edge that Wonderboy had finished the fight a bit more in the better graces, with the judges and the fans even. He made more of a statement in that final round, and you thought that maybe it would carry over to this one. Did you feel that was the case early on in the fight, or did you feel that Tyron was sort of biding his time to get to that point where he could turn it on?
I'm not sure. I know that they brought up in the broadcast that Wonderboy was the favorite coming into it, and I think that the last round and the way that the last fight ended with most of the fans siding with Wonderboy, I think that's why he was the favorite. And watching this, I was thinking that, okay, he's just blocked. And you could even hear his corner saying, stop thinking. But in hindsight, like when they interviewed him afterwards, He was completely coherent. He made it seem like, oh, no, this was exactly how I wanted the fight to go. This is exactly what was planned. And then I kind of started to think about, throughout the fight, I remember John Anik talking about how strike for strike, he was up on the scorecards, and he was more effective. And so later on, they started to argue back and forth. Well, those numbers might be slighted because of all the all of the strikes that were thrown on the ground in, what was it, round 1? No, round 3.
Round three was when Woodley got that takedown, and I think most of his strikes, definitely the volume of the strikes that he landed, were in that third round. And to Rogan's point, I believe that's what those numbers are showing. I really hate those numbers when they bring them up in the fight and like, what is a significant strike? I know that there's a criteria of what is a significant strike, but still, it's very vague to me. It doesn't tell the whole story.
Well, even to call it a significant strike, it needs to have some measure of significance. And if you take what he did in the 5th round, and then you look at every other strike thrown throughout the duration of the first 4 rounds, only the 5th round seems significant.
Right.
Only the 5th round seemed like it did any type of real damage or had any chance of ending the fight. Like, the way they throw the term around significant strikes, it's kind of like I said, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, and I don't like when they show it during the fight to sort of tell the narrative, because numbers don't tell, who is being more effective. You can say landed. Obviously, you have the Fight Metric guys taking those notes and writing them down, or digitally putting them into the system. But it's like, that's still the naked eye cage side. It's no better than a judge. It depends on what side of the cage you're sitting on, or what screen you're watching, where the camera is. What constitutes an actual submission attempt compared to, you kind of had his neck in what looked like a guillotine, but really was a front headlock, and largely at the end of the day means absolutely nothing. And those things add up, and then it's like, there's never been more submissions thrown up from their back in the featherweight division than what Darren Elkins has done here tonight or over the course of his career. And it's like, I really don't even know what that means. So in a roundabout way, are you saying that Darren Elkins is the most aggressive submission fighter that 145 pounds has ever seen? Or
are you saying that he's just terrible at submissions and he attempts them and it doesn't count?
He never finishes them.
They made mention of something like that where they said, he does like 8 takedown attempts per 5 minutes. And I was like, he must suck shit. He must be terrible at takedowns then, because if he has to attempt them that frequently, then he's clearly not getting them or maintaining control. But like, do you see what I mean? How it's almost like you can, they do this in the media with politics a lot, where you could take what they say and then flip it upside down and be like, oh, is this what you mean? And have the exact opposite effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's all context, and you can change context whenever you want to have it fit your narrative and how you see things and want to show something. So Tyron Woodley still your welterweight champion. I don't foresee Tyron really gaining a lot of fans in this fight. The T-Mobile Arena was booing him largely, even booing Wonderboy Thompson a bit in the post fight.
Just like boo altogether. Like when you would say like, "Oh, yay, go MMA."
Right.
I feel like people were like, "No, boo MMA right
now." And that's unfortunate. And I mean, this fight card lost a lot with Nurmagomedov and Ferguson going by the wayside. And I wish Khabib the best going forward, and we'll see what happens with Tony Ferguson and whatnot. I mean, he was calling out Conor McGregor inside the T-Mobile Arena tonight. But, getting back to tonight, Tyron Woodley, he's the torchbearer right now at 170 pounds. He is the face of this division, and it's a face that most people don't really want to see. People troll him on Twitter. He says what he feels, and I personally don't have any issue with what he has said. He talks about basically, not liking the treatment that he is given as a champion, and I will agree. I have a hard time disagreeing with him. When you look at UFC 205 and the way that show was built up, it did feel like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson was the champion. He was billed in a higher profile than Tyron Woodley, and he was received, much more warmly by the audience at Madison Square Garden in that press conference. But I don't know if Tyron can necessarily get upset at the UFC by that because that's the fans' reaction. That's the interpretation.
Nunes.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like this doesn't happen in mixed martial arts, but looking at how Tyron has handled himself since then, I mean, when he wants to bring attention to a situation that he feels wronged in, he does. Some people don't like that. Some people don't like it when you cry foul because to them it's still crying. The things that I do like about Tyron, there are plenty of them. He is a good community leader. He has come from a tough place. He has made his life, coming from, humble beginnings, going through the University of Missouri, getting a degree, and becoming the best 170-pound fighter in the world. He said that I'm the greatest of all time. And getting back to the narratives of statements, he did say, I'm the greatest of all time. And I saw some articles that said Tyron Woodley says he's the greatest welterweight of all time. What they failed to put in that headline is Tyron Woodley said, I'm the greatest 170-pound fighter ever, and my training partners know this. Now I just need to go out there and prove it. And that headline of I'm the greatest of all time, that's sexier than I'm the greatest of all time. Everyone knows it in the gym. Now I need to prove it to the world.
And especially if you are trying to frame him as being very arrogant, like that's a great narrative.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Phone lines are open. 844-SHERDOG is the number. It's 844-743-7364. You can also get at us on Twitter at TJ DeSantis and at Caleb Dude. Get the hashtag out there, SRN. I'd appreciate that. Hashtag SRN on Twitter. The main event now, it adds some clarity at 170 pounds. Wonderboy was very tough and was a game challenger, but he's fought for the title now twice in a row. He hasn't won it. Tyron Woodley will move on. Demian Maia has a fight coming up with Jorge Masvidal. Beyond that, I mean, who in your mind is that true number one contender? If Demian Maia gets the win over Masvidal coming up, then he should fight for the title next. But if there's an upset there, I mean, I don't know. Can you give Jorge Masvidal a title fight if he gets past Demian Maia, or is there someone else out there in the landscape at 170 that you feel is the true challenger?
I think right now they are in a very weird spot. I think that they needed Wonderboy to win. And by them, I mean kind of the UFC, in that having Wonderboy win sets up a lot of interesting matchups. Right now, after this performance tonight, I don't know how excited I am to see Wonderboy fight again. I don't know how excited I am to see Tyron fight again. And so it's almost like, okay, let's put these two guys on hold for a minute and then look at what we have left. Our next top 8 guys, let's have them fight, and let's build some steam up and build a real contender for this, and then we can send them against Tyron. Because I just feel like this fight, because it just fizzled out so much, and even the decision itself, people are going to be like, oh, I don't think that he should have won, or it should have been a draw, or, Wonderboy controlled the pace throughout most of the fight, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think anybody is walking away from this fight happy. And I think they kind of are going to have to rebuild the hype in that division. And I think that's going to take some time.
So let's recap what we saw and then how the judges scored it the way that they did, because I have the judges' scorecards now in front of me. You and I are both in agreement. Stephen Thompson won round 1.
Yes.
The second round, very close. Gun to my head, if I have to pick a winner, I pick Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Okay, 10-9, so I have him up 2 rounds to none. Third round, clearly Tyron Woodley. Mm-hmm. He gets the takedown, does well there. Fourth round, I went back to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Fifth round, clearly Tyron Woodley. I go 10-8.
Yeah, same scorecard for me.
Judge Derek Cleary scored round 1, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Round 2, Tyron Woodley. Round 3, Tyron Woodley. Round 4, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Round 5, Tyron Woodley. 10-9 for a scorecard of 48-47. Saul D'Amato scored round 1 and round 2 for Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Round 3 for Tyron Woodley. Round 4 for Wonderboy. Round 5 for Tyron Woodley. 10-8. Round number 5. His scorecard,
okay,
the lone dissenting round 47-47. Okay. So Chris Lee scored the fight the exact same way as Derek Cleary, same rounds, same score. So only one judge gave the fifth round 10-8. That was Saul D'Amato, and he had 3 rounds to 2 for Wonder Boy. But because of that 10-8 in the fifth, 47-47 scorecard. So I'm happy to see 2 judges score it correctly or in line with one another. I still give that round in the fifth to Tyron Woodley, 10-8, but I give round number 2 to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Before the decision was read, you were saying that it's going to come down to round 2.
Yeah.
And if you look at those 2 scorecards, it
did.
They both gave it to Woodley, right?
Yeah, they did both.
But they didn't give him a 10-8.
They didn't give him a 10-8. So they had Woodley winning 3 rounds to 2, winning round 2, 3, and 5.
Okay.
So I know it's a little hard. You're on the other side of the table, not able to see the judges' scorecards. But, it is interesting because let me ask you this. When you look at this fight card or this fight and the scorecards, having it for Tyron Woodley, even 2 of the judges have it for Tyron Woodley without a 10-8, I think that would raise some red flags a little bit because the rounds that Tyron Woodley won besides the 5th round were very, very close. And you can make the 3rd round he clearly took from a takedown, but in that round even, Thompson, I think, landed some nice strikes at the end of the round. It wasn't like he got blown out by any means. And in the rounds that he won, it wasn't that Tyron got blown out at all, but no. Tyron really just didn't have much to offer. He kind of let Wonderboy dictate the pace. If this was one of those pride type of scoring systems where you judge the fight as a whole, who won the fight? If this is a fight out of the playground.
If this were pride, I would go 100% with Woodley. All the real damage came from him in round 3 and round 5.
Right.
The rest was a lot of kind of showy dancing around, and more like prodding strikes, like no real heat on them necessarily.
Sure.
He threw some good kicks, but like they didn't rock Woodley. They didn't cause damage really. They didn't drop him. So if I'm looking at, all right, who did the most damage, Woodley for sure. What I was really curious about was the scorecards with that round 2, because had the draw judge not given it a 10-8, he would have actually had Woodley losing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's 3 rounds to 2 for Saul D'Amato, with that 10-8 being in round 5 for Woodley. So that's why you have the 47-47. It's not often you get a scorecard that has 3 rounds to 2 for a fighter, but he loses because of the 10-8. John Anik and Dominic Cruz on the broadcast said, hey, I don't think that was a 10-8 5th round. And the judges, again, are being encouraged to be more liberal with that 10-8. I'm a bit surprised that they wouldn't classify that as a 10-8. And, for judges Derek Cleary and Chris Lee, they didn't score that a 10-8. So, in your opinion, Caleb, what is a 10-8 round? What does a 10-8 round look like in mixed martial arts these days? Because for a long time, you basically had to knock a guy out several times or flash KO him a couple times in a fight, in a round to get a 10-8. And now we're supposed to award a 10-8 when you severely, I believe the wording is win a round with some sort of I'll have to look it up here in a moment, but it's something along like greatly make an impact. I don't know. It's still so subjective. It's vaguely worded with like you win a dominant round. Like what is a dominant round?
Is this what comes from the newly adopted rules that aren't adopted in Nevada?
This isn't even so much like a rule change. It's just the officials have been encouraged. They all are on the idea that you need to.
For a while, I know that a lot of people would say that the 10-8 round was basically a unicorn. Like you're not allowed to give a 10-8 round. I heard that all the time.
10 rounds are a unicorn. I think for most people, I think that they happen.
I think most people don't even realize they can happen.
Yeah. Didn't you say that you had judged some fights in Minnesota before there was an athletic commission, and they told you couldn't score?
Yeah, the fight in question was actually in Wisconsin. It was just across the border. But yeah, I turned in a 10-10 for the first round, and I remember the promoter came over and was like, you have to pick a winner. And so I was like, no. Like, I think my scorecard had turned out to be a draw or something anyways, and so he was saying that you had to pick a winner.
Yeah.
But it was because I had 10-10 first round, guy in the blue corner, the second round guy in the red corner, the third round, and so it kind of came out to be a draw. But like round by round scoring, it was a draw, but he was like, no, you need to pick a winner.
I remember one time I commentated a fight card. I think you actually fought on the fight card. This is the Riot show that we talked about on MMA Evolution. And Kelly Coble and I were judges and commentators. And I remember I said, I will score this round 29-28 for fighter B. And we'll see what happens here. We go to the judge's decision. And it was a unanimous decision for the other guy. So I was like, I don't think that. Never mind.
Yeah.
So,
well, was it you who was judging fights and you're standing there with your paper in hand with your score and they never came to get it?
Yeah, that was that one.
Yeah.
That was that one. So
classic.
844 Sherdog is the number. We've got one person on hold. By the way, if you're watching at Sherdog.com, we appreciate it. If you're not watching, you didn't know it's possible, head over to Sherdog.com, Sherdog.com/beatdown.php. You can check out the live YouTube and see Caleb and I right now as we wave to our cameras. Wave. Yeah, there you go. It's fun.
There's a lot of action on tonight's card. A lot of big shots and people taking those big shots.
Right.
But like, what were some of your takeaways from tonight? What were your favorite moments? What did you see?
I really enjoyed the David Tamer and Lando Venata fight. Those guys really went at it. And I actually thought that because they performed so well in that co-main event spot, that it actually hurt the main event because it was fist flying, kicks, knees, everything you want in a nice stand-up fight. And then it was very tactical between Woodley and Wonderboy. And it was tactical for 23 minutes, largely, of their main event fight. And it should be. When the highest stakes in the world are up for grabs in a fight, you should fight the way you need to fight to win. And Wonderboy, I don't think largely will have any regrets from his performance here tonight. He played the game that he needed to, and Tyron Woodley won. Was it pretty? Nah, but it was enough to maintain that top spot at 170 pounds. And when you are fighting at this level in the UFC, when you are the champion and you win a fight, you obviously win the show money and the win bonus. But the next fight, the fact that you're going to be a champion, the next fight, that alone is worth an additional $40,000 because you're going to get that Reebok fight gear money because your next fight, again, is going to be a championship bout. I don't know what Tyron Woodley would get knocked down to. I don't have the Reebok pricing tier in front of me, but it would be significant. I mean, remember, he was a Strikeforce guy. He doesn't have a million UFC fights. He's not a Donald Cerrone. So, the fight kit money, that's big. The fact is that if he fights in the main event, he's going to get a pay-per-view cut. As much as you don't like Tyron Woodley, and I say that from like the fan standpoint, the general feeling on Tyron Woodley, when he fights, it's going to be on pay-per-view. The 170-pound championship belt has always been on pay-per-view for the most part. And when you're a guy like, say Demetrius Johnson, he's I don't know if we're ever going to see DJ back on pay-per-view, at least not standing by himself, unfortunately. He is the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the world, but he's not a pay-per-view draw. So when Tyron Woodley wins tonight, even if it's not pretty and maybe he doesn't, win a lot of fans that he really sort of needs, he makes a lot more money just for the fact that his next fight will be on pay-per-view. He will be the champion, and that means more dollars in his bank at the end of the day.
In the pro wrestling world, would you consider Woodley to be a heel? Like, will there be enough people who will tune in just to see if he gets beat? Or is he somewhere in between where people don't necessarily hate him enough and people don't necessarily like him enough? So he's kind of in that gray area.
That's interesting because in pro wrestling, when you're a heel, you do heel things to rile up the fans. You do things, and it's a decision by you or the promoter, the writing staff, etc., that you're going to act this way, and you're going to generate a reaction to make you the bad guy. Tyron Woodley has not cognitively done anything to rub fans the wrong way. He is being himself, and there is a distaste for the authentic person that is Tyron Woodley. Now, whether that's fair or not, I can't say. That's up to you to decide who you like and who you don't like. But Tyron Woodley has done nothing on purpose to become a heel. I can think of a lot of champions that have done things that are heel-like, or not even champions, but fighters that have done things that are heel-like, and they're beloved for it. Chael Sonnen, the biggest heel that MMA has ever seen. Tito Ortiz, he did a lot of things that were pretty disrespectful, shitty. People loved him for it. People also hated him for it. Nick Diaz doesn't give a shit. And while maybe he's not necessarily heel-like, he's rough around the edges. And people like him. People like Nick Diaz. I can't think of too many people that don't really like Nick Diaz. The people that I know that will say, oh, I don't really care for that Diaz kid, it's because he doesn't fit that mold. Ronda Rousey, another great heel. Conor McGregor, a gigantic heel, but probably one of the most beloved people of the sport, or the most reviled person of the sport, but it goes both ways. People either love to hate him or they absolutely adore him.
Yeah, see, I was gonna bring up Floyd Mayweather because it was kind of the same thing. You had a really devout group of people who tuned in every time he fought to see him win, and you had another group of people who were really devoted to tuning in to see if he would finally lose.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see Woodley falling into this category at all, or where does he stand with the fans as far as pay-per-view buys?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be telling to see what this pay-per-view does, because, again, this pay-per-view, this was Tyron Woodley standing all by himself. There was no co-main event that was really of any note by the time people were buying the fight. Because, I mean, I'm curious if the UFC has research on how many people actually pre-order. I would assume that not many people pre-order a fight, that they buy it, with 45 seconds left to go before it starts.
Everything is so instantaneous that there's really no point in pre-ordering.
Right.
Especially if are we going to do this at my house or your house, or if something comes up last minute. And it literally is. You turn on your TV, you click to the channel, you hit the okay, and, it fires right up. So I don't see any reason why anyone would necessarily, unless there was some type of incentive, like you got a free shirt or a poster or something.
Yeah. And
why would you pre-order?
Back in the day, the UFC used to do a lot of things like that. It's like if you ordered and mailed a copy of your bill, they would send you poker chips. I remember that in 2002, 2003. Around the 10-year anniversary, you get limited edition poker chips. But there's nothing like that. And Tyron Woodley, again, I just don't think people care for him. And it's not in the same way that they don't care for Conor McGregor and can't wait for the wheels to fall off the McGregor train, and they're going to love when he loses. A lot of the people that are bemoaning Tyron Woodley online, I think that they just wish he would have lost tonight, and then they never have to hear from him again. And if he goes on, say he gets Damian Maia next. Say Damian Maia defeats Masvidal, and they go fight. I don't know if anybody is really gonna buy a Tyron Woodley fight based on the intrigue of how he matches up against Damian Maia. And Damian Maia is not going to sell any pay-per-views. He's not going to go out there and say things that rile up the fans. I mean, there was a lot of drama. There was a lot of drama between Tyron Woodley and Wonderboy Thompson. And, whether you liked it or you didn't like it, it made headlines. It made a lot of headlines. Wonderboy Thompson was online saying, I got my bout agreement. I've signed it. Where's your signature, Tyron? And Tyron says that he had already signed it, so he didn't understand why Wonderboy was out there saying that, trying to make him look bad. That's drama. It's not the best drama in the world. It's not what moves the quote unquote needle like Conor McGregor moves the needle, and saying the things that he does and getting the reactions out of people that he does. But it's something, you're not going to get that with Damian Maia. In a Tyron Woodley fight where there isn't drama, where there isn't, the I guess, hero to his villain if he is a heel, I don't know what that really does as far as a pay-per-view buy is concerned. I don't foresee Tyron Woodley defending his title on FS1 or Fox. Maybe if they're in a pinch and whatever happens that something occurs where this title has to be on free TV, you see it. But it's possible that maybe they try to put Tyron Woodley on a pay-per-view in a co-main event spot to a light heavyweight championship or a heavyweight
championship. Remember the first time these two fought, they were the co-main event.
Right.
And Conor McGregor was the headliner.
And that was also the biggest fight card, quote. I mean, the UFC has several biggest fight cards
of all time.
All time each year. Madison Square Garden, it was a big deal. 3 title fights. They were the co-main event to McGregor and Alvarez, and then there was a title fight before them between Karolina Kowalkiewicz and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. So, I don't know. I think that, you need a good foil for Tyron Woodley, or you need a rival. And unfortunately, the only rival that I really can see, at least the way that, Damian Maia doesn't really rile up Tyron Woodley. And I don't really, what will be interesting to me is if Jorge Masvidal beats Damian Maia, what does that do for Masvidal? If he's all of a sudden the number one contender, Tyron Woodley is an American top team fighter. Some people may argue that he isn't, but he trains at an American top team. He has an American top team gym. He trains with Duke Roufus. His coach is Dean Thomas, who is an American top team coach. And he's very good friends with Jorge Masvidal. Not like, they're in the gym at the same time.
Oh.
They're friends.
See, I didn't know that.
Masvidal was on the Morning Wood show, and they were chatting and having fun and talking. Like, they're friends. It's not like Robbie Lawler and Tyron Woodley, who have trained at the same camp. They've been there at the same time, but, maybe they've shared a couple meals together. Jorge Masvidal and Tyron Woodley have laughed and shared stories, and they're friendly. So that would be interesting. I don't know where Jorge Masvidal really fits at 170 pounds yet. He's still, new, but he's got some big wins. Jake Ellenberger has been a stalwart at 170 pounds. The win over Donald Cerrone is big. And if he beats Damian Maia, for me personally, I don't know if I would call him a clear number one contender. But if he got a title fight, I wouldn't be surprised. There have been more curious decisions for who fights for a title than Jorge Masvidal at 170 after beating who I think is the consensus number one contender of Damian Maia.
Well, who else is there? You've got Condit, you've got Lawler.
Condit just lost to Damian Maia.
Yeah, so who else
Lawler was the last person to fight drop the title to Tyron Woodley, and we haven't seen him since. We can pull up some rankings here in a little while. Johnny Hendricks is no longer in the division. Hector Lombard's no longer in the division.
I feel like if he beats Maia, it will make him that number one contender, which is kind of shocking to think about now because it hadn't even crossed my mind before.
Yeah. It'll be real interesting to see how they go about it, should that happen, but we'll see what happens. We talk about some people moving divisions. Rashad Evans made his middleweight debut tonight. He dropped a split decision to Daniel Kelly. An interesting fight. Rashad looked good. He really did look good. I enjoyed seeing him back. It's been a while since we've seen him. He went through some medical stuff in New York, and tonight finally returns. He looked very lean. Rashad Evans, he's one of my favorites to watch because he has been around for a very long time. He reminds me when MMA was a bit of a novelty. He was post The Ultimate Fighter boom, but Rashad Evans, I think he had an old King of the Cage or Gladiator Challenge DVD where he was on it. So he's kind of one of the old school guys that I hold on to a little bit. To see him fight tonight, it was fun to see him back, but he was not the Rashad Evans of old. I don't want to discredit him by saying he wasn't prime Rashad Evans because that's not fair. Because he's not prime Rashad Evans. He's not the guy that captured the UFC light heavyweight championship. But moving down to 185, I thought, okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what Rashad brings to this weight class. And, he looked good at weigh-ins. He looked good, physically in the fight. But when he was connecting with shots, the Rashad Evans that captured the UFC light heavyweight championship, he landed a kick tonight that had the same look, like the same form, the same technique on it that landed against Sean Salmon and gave the UFC one of the best knockouts in its history. Now, granted, he didn't land his flush, but he had an uppercut as well on Daniel Kelly. He hit Kelly with shots that the old Rashad Evans 3, 4, 5 years ago, he would have knocked Daniel Kelly out. And Kelly's not the best striker in the world. Like, Sean Shelby did a great job matching up Rashad Evans with Daniel Kelly, because if you want Rashad Evans to make a splash, I think you put him in there with a guy like Daniel Kelly, who's a good grappler, but Rashad largely isn't going to get caught up in that game and get dumped on his head. And if Rashad fires kicks and punches the way that we know he can, either he's going to get a knockout or he's going to win in a handedly way where you go, look at Rashad Evans.
He's back.
He's a real factor here at 185, and that just never came for the man. He landed some strikes clean, but it wasn't the same sort of result that we've seen in the past from the former UFC light heavyweight champion.
Yeah, I have a bunch to say on this because, first of all, Sean Salmon got knocked out repeatedly after that. And so we can call into question his chin versus Daniel Kelly's chin. And Daniel Kelly, and really actually all night I was saying this, these guys are taking incredible shots and continuing to fight. I saw so many knockout punches, kicks, and knees tonight that same type of thing. 5 years ago, people would have been knocked dead with him, and now it's very commonplace to see that clean punch that lands perfectly, and the guy just kind of weathers the storm and bites down and keeps fighting. Rashad Evans, $1 million ID, what he should do is he should have documented that weight cut, because that's Mike Dolce right there for you. That's, hey, look, I was a heavyweight, I went down to light heavyweight, and now look at me at middleweight, and he looked in such good shape. And he's older now, and things like TRT and all the I guess dangerous weight cutting is kind of been fallen to the wayside. So he's like, look at me. I dropped this weight class in a healthy manner. I showed up on the scale looking better than ever. The only spoil to that plan, and this is something we just leave out of the details, is that he lost this fight. But let's give Daniel Daniel Kelly the credit that he deserves. The way he was striking was really interesting. His little foot hook sweep that he was doing to set things up, that was awesome. His slide out punch, that was awesome. He was giving Rashad fits, not because Rashad was necessarily terrible and lacking in his striking department, or he was gassed out from the cut or anything like that. I just think that he had really drastically improved his striking and kind of presented a game to Rashad that Rashad wasn't quite prepared for.
It was unfortunate that Rashad you kind of performed the way that he did, because Daniel Kelly, I have no problem with him winning the fight. I think he did win the fight. But this is one of those fights where Daniel Kelly wins, but more people are going to talk about how Rashad Evans lost.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's unfortunate for the fighter that, pulls off the upset. And I think one of the more upsetting things when you look at this fight is if Rashad Evans went out there and got a stoppage, we're talking about Rashad Evans being a force at 185 pounds. That's a stacked division. There are more contenders at 185 right now than there's been in a very long time in the UFC. But with that said, Daniel Kelly gets the win, and I don't know if anybody's really going to care about Daniel Kelly. Daniel Kelly will make the walk next time, and the combo video that says, coming up next, it's Daniel Kelly versus so-and-so, it's going to say, fresh off a victory over former UFC light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans, Daniel Kelly returns tonight. Mm-hmm. And people are going to be like, oh, yeah, I remember. He did beat Rashad. Rashad's done. And that's not fair.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I feel is happening, or is going to happen, is that we're just going to say that it was Rashad's fault, but Daniel Kelly had a fantastic performance.
He really did. And like you said, I'm happy that you brought up that technique that he was using, hooking that front leg and then throwing off of it. That was interesting stuff. And he said with Joe Rogan, he's like, look, I've got some new tricks, and he is advanced in age, but he's still getting better, and we'll see what happens for him. I'm definitely more intrigued. I'm not the average guy, I think, that will probably dismiss this win for Daniel Kelly. But, I mean, at the same time, Daniel Kelly's not going to probably go on a run and fight the likes of a Chris Weidman or Mousasi or Jacare or anybody like that in the near future. But hats off to him. Big win for him over a former UFC champion. Granted, not at that weight, but a big win nonetheless for Daniel Kelly, who gets it done here tonight in Las Vegas. Cynthia Carvalho took out Amanda Bobby Cooper. Lasted just 3 minutes and 19 seconds, round number 1. This was a fight that was supposed to be on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, and then all of a sudden it's the main card of the pay-per-view. I mean, you get that call, you get that opportunity, and Carvalho, I mean, did that. You don't get to fight on a pay-per-view generally at the drop of a day's notice, even though, I mean, obviously she was already fighting, but to get that spotlight put on you and to shine.
Her debut was on the main card.
Yeah, I mean, that's big. That's really, really big, and she made the most of it. Amanda Bobby Cooper, finalist in The Ultimate Fighter, loses tonight via rear naked choke. This was an interesting card for a variety of reasons. We talked about the co-main event falling off. The Calvillo and Bobby Cooper fight moving to the main card. That wasn't even the first fight. It wasn't the pay-per-view headliner or pay-per-view opener. Alistair Overeem, Mark Hunt do work for the better part of 3 rounds. The end comes at 1 minute and 44 seconds of round number 3 in a fight where Mark Hunt landed some really great shots. He landed, such devastating kicks that he cut open his own shin.
His elbows. Oh, man.
Yeah, elbows were fantastic. Standing elbows. One of the best elbows that I think that Mark Hunt landed, his back was actually against the fence too, and it looked like it stopped Overeem in his tracks a little bit. But credit to Alistair. We're talking in our pre-show about his chin. It's very hard to feel good about laying money down if you're the type to bet on Alistair Overeem, because I remember in his fight with Bigfoot Silva, he was in control. He was doing things, and then all of a sudden he got clipped, and it was just done. It was
almost like he was playing around with him. And
yeah,
it was like he just got cocky,
Yeah, and when you get a hard strike on the chin, I mean, it doesn't matter how tough and determined you are. When your brain shuts off, your brain shuts off. And for Alistair Overeem, that has happened a few times.
Mm-hmm.
But he took some good shots from Mark Hunt, and then when he got to give his best shot of the fight, it didn't miss. Beautiful elbow, some punches to finish, or a beautiful knee. Some punches to finish it up, and the punches were really just for shits and giggles, because the knee, while it didn't flatten Mark Hunt right away, Mark Hunt was done when that knee landed. And Overeem said in his post-fight interview, he said, look, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. He took some time off and, went on vacation with his family, sort of resorted everything and got back at it. And this is exactly the type of win that Alistair Overeem needed to get back in a big way.
Yeah, and we saw him throw some things that I wasn't used to him throwing, the spinning kick and the spinning elbow. I haven't seen those, and I really haven't seen a lot of elbows out of him in general, but he was also throwing some pretty good elbows. And he knocked out who is widely recognized as having the best chin in combat sports.
Yeah, Mark Hunt, I mean, you remember in K1 when he fought Krokop?
Mm-hmm.
Was taking the left kick and just walking through it.
Yeah.
And
with shoes on, nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, he really is a all-time great. He's in a weird situation with the UFC right now, and he's I don't want to say that his lawsuit is frivolous. I'm not a big fan of lawsuits. He feels he has grounds to take the UFC to court. He's doing that. I respect his wishes on that. But even if you don't respect his wishes on that, even if you think this is a silly litigation that he has going for him, dude hasn't fought a lot of clean guys.
No.
And
it's almost like they get the letter to fight Mark Hunt, and they're like, click, click, click,
right.
Buy steroids,
right. And I understand his problem there. I mean, if you are a clean fighter, I don't want to get into the quote-unquote stats and how we can argue 85% of guys have done something over their careers. It's higher than that, 8 out of 9, 9, 10, whatever. The fact that Mark Hunt has fought as many guys as he has that have tested positive. Michael Bisping, same thing. Michael Bisping, like if you were on TRT, like you got your TUE and a bout agreement with Michael Bisping, it seemed like. It's just the way it was.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate, but if you are a clean fighter, I can see why you would get really upset and why you would get fed up with it, because you're fighting at a time where, I mean, again, the TUE era, you could literally go to the doctor and be like, hey, I want to cheat. Can you write me a note? And the doctor's like, sure.
$300.
I mean, I can smell on you that you don't have enough testosterone in your system. Let me go ahead and write this up. It's like, what? And you know, as much as I say that I'm not a huge fan of steroid talk, like I like to just not think about it, because if I think about it, I get upset by it. Like the bottom line is, a lot of people use steroids, and the level playing field largely doesn't exist in sports, in any sport. I mean, when a Paralympic curler tests positive for performance-enhancing drugs, that pretty much tells me that anytime there is a prize on the line of value, people are going to take shortcuts, if not outright cheat. That's just the way it is.
You know, this doesn't sit well with me, and it doesn't sit well with a lot of the fans. When you look at the Anderson Silva-Nick Diaz fight, where Anderson Silva tested positive for a performance enhancer, got like a year suspension. Nick Diaz tested positive, and he was out for, was it 2 years?
Yeah, but
so,
and
he had a
marijuana
therapeutic use exemption from the state of California as well.
He didn't have a therapeutic use exemption. He had a medical marijuana card. There are two different things.
Same thing.
No, a therapeutic use exemption allows you to take a banned substance, and the athletic commission goes, we're going to accept this, therefore you can use testosterone as long as your levels are within this range, you're good to go. Getting a prescription, I can go get a prescription for pain medication, okay? Because you can argue that every fighter goes through the rigors of training. They're probably in some pain. I just need some medicine to sleep at night better. That's all I need, doc. Okay, here's, OxyContin, all right? If I test positive, even though I have a prescription, and I don't give that prescription to the athletic commission in my pre-fight medicals to say, look, I'm on medication, Nick Diaz didn't do that.
Okay.
He didn't give the commission.
I thought that he...
No, and even if he did give the commission, I mean, Nevada's been hard. Nevada's been very hard on marijuana. If Nevada had gotten a notification from Nick Diaz that said, look, I have a medicinal marijuana card and I need this to be a functioning human being for X, Y, and Z, they're going to go, you're not fighting. You're a drug user.
That's interesting because, like, Nevada has had medical marijuana for quite a while, and now after the first, even though it hasn't really been implemented yet, recreational use of marijuana is legal in the state of Nevada as well. So I wonder if their opinions on that are going to change. I've been wondering that a lot. I've been wondering, are companies going to test their employees for marijuana anymore, or will they only, when they do their drug tests, do other drugs? Like, I'm really curious as to how this is going to be rolled out.
Yeah, I mean, you're in a state here as well where, recreational use of marijuana is legal. But if I'm an officer of the Drug Enforcement Agency, I'm a federal agent. I can arrest whoever I want to if you have any marijuana on you. And because it's against federal law, I do believe that an employer has the right to test you, fire you, fine you, whatever they want to, because even though it is legal at the state level, it is a federal offense.
Yeah, if you were to take your employer to court at the state level and win, they're going to take it to the federal level.
Right. It's just going to be nonsense, honestly. And there are much worse things in life to get up in arms about than marijuana. And I'm sorry. I remember.
Well, that was kind of the point that I was making, was that he was being punished more than the. I don't know which substance that Anderson
Silva said he tested positive because he used a performance enhancer for the bedroom. It was the little blue vial. It was
the little blue vial.
It was something he got overseas. He just wanted to, he wanted to make his lady happy.
Have you heard about Tom Lawler?
Yeah.
Yeah, they gave him a 2-year suspension for that, and he's pretty much like, my career's over. He's like, I wasn't planning on fighting that much longer, but this is kind of the nail in the coffin.
I mean, wasn't Nick Diaz's suspension, wasn't that literally like 5 years or something like that, and then it got reduced?
Yeah.
I mean, there was the White House petition and all sorts of stuff. I mean, I don't know. Keith Kaiser, I remember when he tested positive, Diaz, in the Gomi fight, Kaiser was out there saying, he was talking about marijuana like it was the great numbing agent of all time. Like, oh, you smoke and then you can get hit by a truck and you're going to go out and party still. It'll be fun. It's like, no, dude, that's not how weed works. Like, I mean, I don't know. If anyone wants to say that performance-enhancing things happen from marijuana, like every pothead that I know in high school, in college, today, like they smoke weed and watch YouTube documentaries. Like, they don't go out there and make sure they get their cardio in generally. Like, Nick Diaz doesn't run triathlons because he likes to smoke weed and he's like, let's do an Ironman. That's not how it works. You can argue the benefits of marijuana. I think there are benefits of marijuana there. I mean, CBD alone, like not even the psychoactive properties of marijuana you can use, and it will better your life. I swear it will. With that said, though, taking marijuana throughout a training camp is not going to make you better on fight night. It's just not.
No. And I've been training at 10th Planet now, which is like stereotyped for lots of of marijuana use. Right. And I haven't noticed if someone was high when I was rolling against them, or no one actually does it. But to me, like, to be high or to be really just in any state of not 100% focus and control while I'm training, that seems absurd to me. You know what I mean? Like if my movement was slower, that would be frustrating to me. If my thoughts were slower, that would be frustrating to me. If I was weaker, that would be frustrating. Like, really, I don't see the performance enhancing benefits of it at all.
Yeah, I mean, especially when it comes down to like pain tolerance. And again, if you are someone who, partakes in marijuana, I'm not lying. I'm not saying this, and I've never smoked marijuana in my life. Never have. Not one time. But when you are around people that do smoke weed, they get high. Most of them do whatever they do when they get high. And the next day they get up and they go to work and they're not high. It's not really affecting them. If they party all weekend on Saturday, not really affecting them on Monday. If you're going to say that marijuana is a performance enhancer, you got to smoke like right before the fight. You got to be high while you're fighting. And I'm sorry. If I have to fight another human being, please make them be high, because I need every advantage that I can get, because I'm not a trained athlete.
Yeah, see, you're the same way I am. I think it's a disadvantage.
Right, it is. So to say that it is a performance enhancer, and even if it is a performance enhancer, unless they're high at that moment, you're not even feeling the effects of it.
Now, we're not educated enough on this, and maybe somebody will call in who has a good idea of what I'm trying to
We've got someone from Colorado on the line, so we might be okay. I mean, they're among the first states to legalize.
Okay. But think about when someone is drunk. You have your, like, drunk guy who can barely stand up, and then you have your drunk guy who is, like, Superman standing outside tearing his shirt off.
Right, beer muscles. Right.
Yeah. And so maybe there's a midway point where you're not dumb high, but you're also not sober. Maybe there's some like perfect point in the middle, like a
0.08.
I don't know.
That's too drunk to drive, but not drunk enough to fall down.
Yeah. So maybe we can get somebody who can talk to us and be like, oh yeah, one time I was at that perfect point where like I could see through my third eye and I set up a go-go plata or something.
Right.
Yeah. Like I'm interested to know.
Yeah, I don't think it exists, but yeah, we'll find out. 844 Sherdog is the number. It is 844-743-7364. You can get at us on Twitter at TJ DeSantis, at Caleb Dude. Some quick results. Marcin Tybura defeated Luis Enrique. The end comes at 3 minutes, 46 seconds of round number 3. I don't have bonus information yet here. I'm sure we can find it when we go to break, but Darren Elkins deserves a bonus for what he did against Mirsad Bektic, handing the American Top Team product the first loss of his career. The end comes at 3 minutes, 19 seconds of round number 3. The fight ended at this point 3.5, 4 hours ago. And if Darren Elkins is still at the hospital, I wouldn't be surprised. This man was cut up. He was battered. He was bloodied. And he was a big underdog going into the fight. After the first couple of rounds, I assumed that live line was insane in the corner of
I would like to
Bektic.
see that.
I mean, no one had Darren Elkins winning this fight before the fight and throughout the first 2 rounds.
He was bloodied and swollen. Like, he was really beat up.
Yeah, and, the grit, the determination, everything that comes with being a veteran, Darren Elkins had to call on tonight. And when he got his opportunity, he did not miss. The way that he defeated Bektic was stunning in the fashion, the come from behind fashion in which he did. But dude, it was a bit visceral and violent as well, because Bektic went out and he basically looked like he was trying to
burn Bolo.
Yeah, like he was inverted on his head and unconscious. And Darren Elkins, I love that they showed it on the replay. Darren Elkins runs away with just elation and just a primal scream. And like Darren Elkins, he's a man. He is a true savage warrior man. And no matter what Darren Elkins does for the rest of his career, this fight will be his career-defining moment, I think.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it would be hard to even conceive anyone topping that after that type of performance, you know?
Yeah.
And hand to God, I hope he doesn't have to go through another one of those ringers to top this performance. I hope this is the last time he goes through that.
Let's not make this your brand, Darren Elkins, because there'll be a shortage of normal skin on your face, and it'll be replaced with scar tissue because he went through the wood chipper, to say the least. Yuri Alcantara defeated Luke Sanders. Beautiful knee bar, gets it done. 3 minutes, 13 seconds of round number 2. Mark Godbeer defeated Daniel Spitz. Unanimous decision goes the way of the Brit. Tyson Pedro victorious over Paul Craig. TKO elbows ends the bout at 4 minutes, 10 seconds of round number 1. Albert Morales kicked off the night, getting a split decision over the UFC's first Laotian, Andre Sukumatoth. That's hard for me. I need to get that pronunciation file that John Anik has gotten over the years. He does the pronunciation of the week, which he hasn't done in a minute on his podcast. I think it's because I was winning. They would play this. They would have a name and then ask me to say the name, and then they would play the fighter actually saying the name to see how poorly I would say it. Mm-hmm. And I think I won too many times because they stopped the segment altogether. That's just me, but 844 Sherdog is the number. It is 844-743-7364. We go out to line 1, going out to the phones for the first time this evening. It is Chris in Denver. Chris, what's up, man?
Oh, not a whole lot, guys. A few things on the pot discussion.
Oh, good.
Employment law is mostly state, so I don't know if the feds could overturn it if a state says you cannot fire someone for smoking marijuana. I don't think there's a federal preclusion there. As far as if you're just that sweet spot of high, depends on the person. I mean, I know some really angry drunks, and no one would contend that alcohol intoxication of any kind helps you, based on any serious medical research there.
Sure.
So,
hey, real quick, Chris,
remind
me, aren't you an attorney?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got an attorney who lives in the state of Colorado. See, the SRN listenership, they're here to help you, Chris. We appreciate it.
Always.
So,
as to the robbery,
go ahead.
The only thing I feel robbed of. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say you're probably not calling in solely for marijuana discussion. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, I still got a weird echo. So if you say something, it'll take a little bit to separate it from what I'm saying.
Sorry, Chris.
So, FYI. I still love you, TJ. You produce a lot stand, so that's enough.
Number 1 in the ring.
But anyways, to the robbery thoughts, the only thing I feel robbed of is my Saturday night.
Really? okay, let's be honest. The main event wasn't spectacular. But if you decided to stay in and watch the UFC tonight and, get together with some buddies, have some beers, order a pizza, like taking a fight like you normally do, like most people normally do, and don't sit in a room by themselves and take notes and do a radio show afterwards, I thought it was a fine night. I mean, yes, the main event wasn't amazing from an action standpoint, but Overeem and Mark Hunt, I thought that they brought it. Lando Venata and David Tamer, another great fight. Yuri Alcantara coming back and getting that knee bar. There were things, and Darren Elkins. I mean, come on, Darren Elkins was free, and I felt that was worth the money that I put in on pay-per-view, essentially. There were things to take away from this fight to say that it was a good evening, but I don't know. Maybe, Chris, you need to partake in your recreational rights and privileges there in the state of Colorado if you're hating on this card that bad.
I think they have pot clubs. Maybe one of those will show the fights.
It's almost like when you go out to eat. You go to a really nice restaurant, and your appetizer is really good. Your first course, your second course, everything is good. But then when you get to that main course, it comes out and it's not amazing. Even if it's like just okay, then you leave that restaurant thinking, that place wasn't that good. It's like all those great things that had happened before are almost forgotten about because that bad taste was left in your mouth.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I feel.
Well, I'm a guy that if you have like solid cheese curds and a terrible steak, I might show up and just get some appetizers. You just order appetizers next time. I mean, here's the thing. Every fight card is different. I mean, how many times have we talked about a fight card going into a UFC weekend where we're like, man, on paper, this card is not very good. And then all of a sudden you're looking at fight of the year. You know what I mean? Or knockout of the year. You get rewarded at times. And I understand as well as anybody else. Like, you wanted to see Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson fight. A lot of people have been saying, oh, these interim belts, I don't like the interim belts. This is all Conor McGregor's fault. Interim belt here, interim belt there. But the interim belt, you were happy that this fight between Tony Ferguson and Nurmagomedov was an interim belt because we're going to get 5 rounds. It's going to be a fight that you want to make sure every minute counts for the prospective athletes involved. And then it goes away, and it sort of lowers that bar a little bit. And I think because the card lost Ferguson and Nurmagomedov and that bar went down, it wasn't that if the fight card could just go a little bit better than where you put the bar, it would have exceeded expectations and you would have felt better about it. But because your expectations going into the weekend were so high that it didn't matter. That when Tony and Khabib fell off, no matter what, this card wasn't going to be the same.
You went into the card being disappointed already.
And
I totally understand that.
And, there were moments that were good. There were times here where, Caleb and I were in studio and, we were popping a little bit because there were some good fights. But then the main event came and, I thought that the conclusion was interesting. I mean, if Tyron Woodley doesn't have the 5th round that he has, I think the entire mood of this radio show is probably not as excited or, we're probably talking about a very long night because there wasn't a lot going on. Like you and I were talking, Caleb, the 4th round happens between Woodley and Wonderboy, and we're like, man, the 4th round's already here? Like, not much has happened in this fight.
Yep. And
then all of a sudden, it changes. But again, like, Chris, how disappointed were you when Nurmagomedov and Ferguson fell off? And did you ever fully recover? Because I don't think many people did.
No, I didn't. And on that note, I have a friend that this is what I would consider a casual MMA fan, is someone that watches the big cards and then a couple other. If you only show up for Conor and Ronda, I don't think that's really a fan. I mean, that's just like someone who only watches football during the Super Bowl. They're not really a football fan. They're just someone that you could pull in to that universe to watch.
The Buffalo Wild Wings fan.
Yeah. And he probably buys about 6 or 7 pay-per-views a year, maybe 8, something like that. He told me that he wasn't going to watch once Nurmagomedov pulled off. So I think a lot more people were interested in him than what you realize.
Sure. No,
I think you're 100% dead on with that, because I, at times, had forgot that the Woodley fight was even happening, because that's all. And granted, like I said, I train at 10th Planet, so everyone was really hyped for this Tony fight. But it's that to me was the main event. And when that fell through, I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen to this card? And so then I start looking through, and I saw Mirsad Bektic, and I saw the Woodley fight, and I was like, well, there's still some good fights on here. But yeah, I think that was the people's main event.
Yeah, it was a good fight, and I don't think we're ever going to see it. And that makes, I think Nurmagomedov probably submits him.
wow.
He tries a lot of weird stuff.
Wow.
And Nurmagomedov's fundamentals and his strengths are so strong that if you try something weird, he's really good at catching you. It's like if a 3-stripe blue belt tries something they just learned on YouTube on a pretty advanced brown belt, he's going to get tapped.
Yeah, he
and
go for a flying armbar on a brown belt. Yeah.
It's just Nurmagomedov is on that next level and a level beyond that.
I hope we see it. I don't know. Again, I don't know everything on what has happened with Khabib. I don't know if he can't make the weight going forward, anything like that. We'll figure out what happens when the dust settles. But Tony Ferguson was calling out Conor. If Conor really is out for a year, we're not going to see him fight until November of next year. I hope Tony Ferguson fights before that time. I don't want to see Tony sit, but we'll see what happens. The lightweight division, with Conor out, who knows what is going to happen.
If this Mayweather thing happens, we'll never see Conor again.
You think so?
I disagree with that.
Really? He's if he gets paid what he wants to get paid for this Mayweather fight, he'll make 10 times what he will make in the UFC in one fight.
The UFC's not going to let it happen. I just don't see the UFC letting it happen, especially if they get any sort of feeling that what you say is correct, Caleb. If Conor McGregor fights Floyd Mayweather and it means he never fights again, the UFC's not going to sign off on it. And without the UFC's blessing, fight's never going to happen. Just not. They own his rights.
How do you think that fight would go?
What, the Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather fight?
Yeah. Conor gets humiliated,
the
right?
same way every Floyd Mayweather fight has gone.
I think Floyd would have the ability to turn it on and actually stop him. Yeah, Floyd would turn it on and potentially stop him.
But at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather gets his hand raised every single time.
I'm not interested. Like honestly, I cannot stress this enough.
I don't think he'd go out on a humiliation.
I cannot stress this enough. Conor McGregor boxing Floyd Mayweather, I have absolutely zero interest in seeing it. None. Especially if you're going to charge me $100 to watch it on pay-per-view, which is what they charged for Manny Pacquiao and Floyd. Mm-hmm. I assume that'll be this way. I've said it a million times. I pissed somebody off on social media one time who sent me this. I should find the Facebook message he sent me. Just ridiculous stuff. I said, and this isn't going to happen either, because Floyd will make no concessions to Conor, and he doesn't need to make any concessions to Conor. But if this fight were to happen, for me to even, as a consumer, for me to even think of putting $100 down or any amount of money to watch Floyd Mayweather box Conor McGregor, you got to make some concessions in the rules. You got to let them box in a cage so Floyd can't cut off the ring. Having a mixed rules fight and allow Conor to throw kicks to the body or the legs, or have them box in a ring, but you cannot break the clinch. Something that allows Conor McGregor to implement the game that he has become a star from. If you only let them box, I'm sorry, if you only let Conor McGregor box, there are no credentials that he owns that says he should box the greatest boxer of all time.
But even the concessions you're looking at making, it's not like Conor relies heavily in the clinch or anything like that.
No, but Floyd has never been there before, which at least levels the playing field to a certain extent. Let Conor have some sort of tools that he's drilled. I mean, straight boxing is not Conor McGregor's suit. I mean, standing and just throwing straight punches is not something Conor McGregor does. Conor implements kicks. He spins. He can't do any of that in a boxing match with Floyd Mayweather. Therefore, Conor McGregor can't fight his game at all. And Floyd Mayweather, I mean, to me, he has the ability to stop Conor. He could play it safe. He could outbox and style on Conor without hurting Conor. But I think that he has the ability to hurt Conor should he want to. And I'm not interested in seeing that. I'm just not.
I think he dances around him for 2 or 3 rounds, tires him out. And then once he's gassed in the 4th, he gets sadistic. Just humiliates him. And I don't think Conor would want to end his combat sports career on that.
I mean, I don't know.
The way he handled the Diaz loss, he wanted to get right back in there. And I think after that, he would go after the biggest challenge he can in MMA to erase that image from everyone's mind.
Or he could just say thanks for the cheese and laters, like he did when he quote-unquote retired last year.
Well,
I mean, here's the thing. If he boxes Floyd Mayweather, there's got to be something in return other than just go out here and box Floyd Mayweather. Do a best of 3. Water down the rules to where it's blurred a little bit. Give Conor McGregor something. Because at the end of the day, Floyd Mayweather wants to push his record to 50-0.
Mm-hmm.
What does it say that the 50th win is against a world champion mixed martial artist who has never boxed? I mean, if Randy Couture had a round number of 50-0 or James Toney was his 50th win, does that James Toney win mean anything
but you're
to Randy Couture?
Looking at this through like a colored lens. All right? If you look at it through the green colored lens, you're taking 2 of the absolute best money marketing combat sports professionals. You're putting them together, and you are going to have the biggest gate, the biggest pay-per-view.
Sure. You're right.
When Mayweather sets that record, that means a lot more than whomever he beats for his 50th.
No doubt. You are 100% correct. From a money-making standpoint, makes all the sense in the world. Is the Athletic Commission there to say, yes, you can fight this guy because of all these reasons that we can make money off of it? Or is the Athletic Commission there to go, you've never boxed before. You have no experience against elite-level competition in boxing. Therefore, you cannot box Floyd Mayweather. Or are they there to go, let's just throw everything out the window and let's take everything off of our shelves because we need more space to put the stacks of money that we're going to make?
I guess that's a good question.
Remember when they let CM Punk fight?
Oh, solid own.
Yeah, okay, but at least CM Punk was fighting a guy who was 2-0 in mixed martial arts. 2-0.
That was
not 49-0.
to,
Not 49-0. And also, yes, you're right. It was in Ohio. The fact is that if Floyd Mayweather boxes Conor McGregor, it's going to be in the fight capital of the world. It's going to be in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
it's going to be
owns this
right.
Shit,
it's going to be with the Nevada Athletic Commission. But I hate it. I hate it because if you tell me that a boxer is fighting, if you tell me a boxer is fighting for his 50th pro win against a guy who is 0-0, I would say, oh, what did Texas do now? What did Alabama do now? What did these commissions that have no business putting on the best fights in the world, putting on that sort of fight? I'm sorry. Conor McGregor, 0-0 pro boxer, should not be fighting a man who's 49-0 and largely considered one of the greatest, if not the greatest of all time.
I feel that you're just essentially saying that Conor McGregor stands absolutely no chance. He has no business being in the ring. He stands
no chance.
That's really
no chance.
Your opinion.
It's
your
not
take
an opinion.
On it, though.
Okay, Caleb, you don't get to go ahead and do a pro sport. You don't get to go run in the Olympics if you've never ran track and won a world championship. Right. No, not even in high school. You don't get to go to the Olympics if you haven't earned your way there to contend for a world championship, okay? You don't get to go to the Olympics if you're a fast football wide receiver. You don't get to fight the best boxer of all time because you're a vocal mixed martial artist who moves the needle. And granted, Conor's won. Conor's won some fights, for sure.
But why?
Why is he what?
Why can't he fight him? Why do you say that you don't get to do this?
Because the Athletic Commission is supposed to weigh experience when approving bouts. Every fight that is ever made in the state of Nevada is approved by the commission. Never in the history of combat sports, ever, I'm willing to bet, I don't have this fact in front of me, but I would be hard-pressed to think ever in the history of combat sports, a 49-0 fighter was approved to fight a 0-0 fighter.
Let me know about that James Toney Randy Couture fight.
Wasn't 49-0, sir.
Where did that happen?
Wasn't 49-0, sir.
I mean, he was 0-0.
No,
He was a boxer.
Wasn't.
And he came in fighting Randy Couture, who is widely received as one of the greatest of all time. I don't
Randy
know
Couture,
that he was the champion at the time.
He
but
wasn't the champion, but Randy
he was at three-time champion, 2 weight divisions. I mean, this is pretty similar. And boxing 49-0, that's like being 11-0, which Mirsad Bektik was tonight. Like boxing, you just have way more fights because that's boxing.
All right, I'm looking this up right now. Anything else in your mind, Chris, before we bail?
No, I need Chris here.
I mean,
Chris
I
is
don't
my
disagree with
attorney.
anything that you're saying about the fight, but it's like explaining why the Katie Vick angle made no sense. I mean,
Really?
yeah,
We're
everything
gonna-
you're saying is true, but you're kind of being a mark and missing the point.
Oh, man. James Toney, let's see here. James Toney fought Randy Couture at UFC 118. It was headlined by Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn and was in the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, which at the time in 2010 would have been relatively new to mixed martial arts. Wouldn't surprise me too much that a new commission would approve something like that. But at the same time, Caleb, I get your point. I wasn't arguing that this was an unfair playing field for James Toney, and the fight shouldn't happen because of that. But I'm also a quote-unquote MMA guy. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I hope it happens. Regardless of the outcome, I want to see that much attention and that much money.
Why do you
come
like
to
blowing
combat
money?
Sports.
Why do you like blowing money? Because that's all that
I
is.
live in Vegas. That's what we do.
It's true. Well, it'll also help your local economy. Not that it needs it, but hey, Chris, appreciate the call.
Yeah, you two have a good show.
I don't know why we went down that. Like, the power of Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. Like, tonight
had nothing to do with tonight's
has
fight.
nothing to do with those two. And we spent probably, 10 minutes on it? I don't know. Let's go out to the phones one more time. Marco in Waco. Marco, what's up, man? Oh, wait, hold on. I got to press this button. Sorry, Marco. Start again.
Marco from Waco, ¿qué pasa, vatos?
What's up, man? How are you?
¿Qué pasa?
First of all, you guys looking good on YouTube, man. You feel like your inner Mauro Ronaldo, not like you need any more screen time, Mr. Play-by-play of Invicta.
I was worried about the Mauro Ronaldo reference because, basically when you're a white man that is bald, like you all look the same. And then when you're a white man with glasses and you're bald, you also look the same. And then obviously Mauro Ronaldo and I are both lighter-skinned fellows.
Well, he's not bald anymore.
He's got hair again?
Yeah.
That lucky son of a gun.
WWE?
No, I'm sorry. The only pro wrestling I watch is from the lapsed era, and Mauro Ronaldo wasn't on my WWE network then. So
Yeah, he got his hair back, man.
good for him. I wish I could do the same, but it's a bad idea, I'm told.
So let's talk about this card a little bit. I agree with, overall the card was entertaining. We got 1.5 finishes in a row. We got Alcantara pulling a knee out of his ass. Tyron Elkin with the combat of the ages. I mean, combat of the ever.
Mm-hmm.
Alistair Overeem, Dana White threw a little nugget there. The guy got food poisoning today. He almost didn't make it to the fight, man. And then he goes up there and almost decapitates Mark Hunt.
Wow. Did you know that, TJ?
I didn't. I had not heard that at all. And that's interesting, especially to go in there and fight a guy like Mark Hunt, who was obviously throwing a lot of shots to the body, throwing some kicks, and getting kicked to the body in general sounds terrible. I mean, we almost saw Derek Lewis completely S himself in the octagon a couple weeks ago. His words, but to have food poisoning go in there with the likes of a Mark Hunt, like, man, that's some manly business to go ahead and do that.
I wonder where he ached. I need to know that.
Well, you can avoid it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like I said, Dana White was being interviewed in FS1, and that's when he threw that nugget that they were like right before the fight, deciding whether he was going to make the walk or not. So obviously he did. Then Dan Kelly, he's a boss, man. The guy's like put up together like with Scotch tape, and everything wrapped out on his knees and stuff. And he fought like a boss. 39 years old. He's my new hero.
Yeah, I thought he looked great.
Say that again?
I thought he looked great.
I know. But that main event, man, I truly believe that George St. Pierre was looking at the fight and thinking to himself, I can beat both of those guys tonight. Tonight. I can take my suit off, get out there and beat those two guys tonight.
I hope so. I would be way more interested in either of those fights than the Bisping fight.
I'm really curious. Marco, you're on the line. I'd like your thoughts on that. What do you think about Michael Bisping and George St. Pierre for the middleweight champion? Is this the fight that makes sense to you, or would you rather see another fight for GSP's return, and if so, which?
Okay, I am a GSP Mark, and GSP is coming back and he can get whatever he wants. That's just what I feel.
All right.
Now, for me, this is a legacy fight. Because if George St. Pierre wins, he's a two-division champion. And, he can be on that list with Penn, Couture, and Conor. And if Bisping wins, he gets on his mantle Henderson, Silva, and then GSP. So either way, it's a legacy fight. And that's what it makes sense to me. Plus, it's going to make a lot of money, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, looking. I was just going to say, just real quick, we're talking money fights. I'm going to bring this up, and we're not going to go back to Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather. But when it comes to money fights, the biggest money fight of all is GSP versus Conor McGregor.
Hello?
I don't want to see it.
I could see that.
I don't want to see it, but that's the fight that makes sense. Still, to me, the fight that makes the most sense, the fight that I want to see for GSP coming back, is Anderson Silva. Yeah, the greatest of all time in Anderson Silva, the greatest of all time, in, for my opinion, in George St. Pierre. Anderson Silva, yes, he's fallen off. He's not the best in the world that he once was when he was the middleweight champion, but those guys were 1A and 1B when it came to pound-for-pound greats.
We've seen what's happened to Anderson over the course of time, but we haven't seen what's happened to George St. Pierre over the course of time.
Right.
Whoever he fights is going to be very telling as to what his future holds.
No, for sure. Marco, anything else?
Yeah, real quick. I'll tell you, if George St. Pierre wins that fight, they're going to make the Anderson Silva match finally.
And then if that happens, so Anderson Silva's going to fight for the middleweight championship again. So if Anderson beats GSP, he's once again the middleweight champion. So clearly we need to see Rich Franklin fight for it again.
Yeah.
We're just going backwards.
If you ever train on 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu and you're not getting contact high by just rolling with the match, something is wrong with you.
Appreciate the call. Thank you, Marco. You're wearing the 10th Planet shirt over there.
I am. You like that one?
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Costa Mesa.
There you go. Casey Halstead somewhere very happy seeing this on
he's always
YouTube.
Very happy. I like him a lot.
I like Casey, too. Good dude.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Tomorrow.
EBI 11, Florentine Gardens in El Monte. Not at the Orpheum, which is a little bit weird. I've only been away from the Orpheum for one EBI, and that was the last one, which was in Mexico City, so I'm going to feel a little uncomfortable. Although it's like 20 minutes closer to my house.
Well, I heard that with this this old location, you can get seating all the way around 360 degrees.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have that one wall where there's nothing really going on. But also, we've got Combat Jiu-Jitsu making its debut.
Yeah.
And
look at you, Mr. Shill, for EBI 11. I appreciate that.
I'm so excited for it.
Yeah.
Like I'm more excited for it than I was for tonight's fights, and I was excited for tonight's fights.
You've been to one EBI, is that right? Have you only been to one?
I went when Meow.
Yeah, the Joe Soto one.
That was the first one. And then I went to, I've been to 2 or 3 with you.
The EBI?
Yeah.
I've got the worst memory. It's not good. You sure? I know you've been to a couple Tachis with me, but I don't remember you being...
I think I've been to more EBIs than Tachi. Well,
been to 2.
No,
you've been to 3 Tachis.
Yeah. I think it's 3 of each I've
got
been
it.
to.
I have a terrible memory. Yeah. Sounds right. Maybe. I don't know.
Well, tomorrow's another one. So
yes,
we'll
EBI 11. The welterweights. I don't want to let news out. I don't know if it's out yet, but you and I know a late replacement. They got thrown in. I had to do the reads.
Yeah,
do you
that's
remember?
kind of a big deal.
It's kind of a big deal.
I
think that's interesting.
You still
But I
got
have no
Gordon
idea
Ryan
what's
in
out.
there. You've
Yeah.
got, like I said, the combat jiu-jitsu, Boogeyman.
Yeah, Richie
Boogeyman's in
Martinez. Yeah.
there. Kyle Griffin.
Yeah, former finalist. He fought Gordon Ryan, so he's looking for a rematch. I'm trying to see here.
Who's the other one? Like at the top of the bracket, there was 4 guys, kind of the 4 corners of the brackets, and all of them I was excited to see compete. And then there's a bunch of guys that I really didn't know, or guys that I've only seen a little bit from that have been in EBI before that are going to be there. And what do you know about the combat jiu-jitsu guys? Do you know any of them?
Yeah, Chad George is in it.
Chad George,
So,
I heard he's a stud.
Yeah, I mean he's a WEC vet. I called a couple of his fights as well in Tachi. I mean this combat jiu-jitsu thing, it is. I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's just pancration. I've seen that before. It's different. Pancration generally happens between young fighters who don't know what they're doing yet, so they have these limited striking rules when it comes to basically MMA.
Yeah.
Chad George knows everything there is to know about competing in MMA. Chad George knows everything there is to know about competing in jiu-jitsu. I wonder, again, Eddie Bravo and Victor Davila, it's still an invitational, meaning everyone that is there, you're getting an invite to.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, coming out of the woodwork and making deals. Like, you have to get an invite. But I wonder if you're going to have MMA guys that maybe don't have a lot of submission savvy in their games want to get involved because they're going to think, oh, I'm going to get in there. I'm going to go against, traditional jiu-jitsu guys. I'm going to get on top, and it's not going to matter if they're better at jiu-jitsu than me. They try to go for my legs, which is a big thing. Like, if you don't know heel hooks.
Oh, yeah. If you have a sit-up guard, like
Right.
even scooting forward with a butterfly guard, you're going to get bitch slapped.
Well, I mean, if you have a guard that is like you like to play a closed guard, because I mean, if you look at MMA guys, especially MMA guys from 10, 11 years ago, they got guard and they just held on. They closed guard, they held on, try to get underhooks, maybe try to get a sweep, but for the most part, a guard was a closed guard situation. You can't do that in EBI. You have to have an open guard. The guy on top is going to grab a leg. You're going to be in 50-50 position. I mean, there are a lot of times at EBI where neither man really cares if they're on top or bottom. They just want to try to get to that 50-50 position so they can play the leg game. All of a sudden, tomorrow during combat jiu-jitsu, it's going to be a big deal to not be on the bottom.
Yeah. I think that I mean, really, all it is, the only real rule change is that on the ground you're allowed to throw palm strikes, and that's it.
Right.
That, as far as I know, that's the only real change, right? I think that one little change is going to make a drastic difference in the matches that are combat jiu-jitsu versus the EBI tournament tomorrow.
Well, you talk about EBI, and I say this all the time when it comes to sport jiu-jitsu with points compared to submission only. I prefer the submission only game because I want there to be a definite answer to who is winning the fight. And I don't ever want someone to be punished for going for an armbar and getting the guard pass, or going for a triangle and the fighter defends and then they end up inside, or there's a brief scramble and they call it a sweep, etc. You shouldn't lose a fight for trying to end it. You shouldn't lose a fight for being aggressive, and if it doesn't work, you get your guard pass, etc.
As you mention it, I feel like it's going to be an entirely different crop of guys that's going to be successful in the combat jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I came from a team that was very points oriented, and I came from training with MMA prior to that.
Right.
And so my jiu-jitsu game really is I pass the guard, I go to side, I control you, and I take them out. And for the longest time, I would just get to mount and not know, I couldn't finish. Guys would clamp their arms, and I would just kind of ride it out till the end of the round. And it was really frustrating for me. I thought that, my jiu-jitsu was terrible. But now, if I'm looking at combat jiu-jitsu, I can start palm striking the crap out of people. And that's exactly how those submissions would open up in MMA.
Right.
You know, I didn't really know. That's what I mean. When they start hugging in like this, and I'm glad we got a camera so they can see me. When they start hugging in like this, I would always have trouble trying to get those arms free to set up chokes or arm bars or even like take the back. However, if I was able just to pop them on the nose a couple times, suddenly this becomes this, and now I've got tools I can work with.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious if the Danaher Death Squad, if any of those guys who have really used the EBI rules to their advantage in the format to really do great things that they may have not necessarily been able to do yet in the points game, if they'll take that jump to combat jiu-jitsu. I don't think a Gordon Ryan or Gary Tonin necessarily needs to, but it would be really interesting to see how Gordon, Eddie, and Gary would modify their games if strikes could be thrown at them, because they're so content to play the leg game. And that's another thing too, like with those guys, if they get a hold of your leg, can you afford to take any attention off of your limb to palm strike them? If it was a punch, that's different. I understand if you punch someone in the face, you get them to move, but how hard can you actually strike with an open-handed palm? Some guys, a lot. I think you're going to see cuts. I think you're going to see KOs. I think you're going to see TKOs. I really do.
Yeah.
But some guys, I don't think can strike as hard as others can with their open-handed strikes. I mean, going back to Pancrase, you're not breaking news to me when you're showing Boss Rutan destroy people with open palms. Frank Shamrock. You remember Frank Shamrock getting hit in the face and then sticking his tongue out, getting hit in the face and sticking his tongue out? Like, sometimes they don't always land. But if I'm in your guard and I stack up and I hit you with the butt of my heel on your nose, I can mess your nose up.
Yeah.
I'm not saying me in general. I'm saying anybody. The butt of your palm, pretty hard.
Well, this is something that Casey actually brought up last night when we were talking about some of the rule changes and stuff. If you remember Kyle Griffin's match where he let his arm get fully extended, probably really messed it up, right? Because he essentially let that happen so he could win. Well, now let's say that someone goes for that heel hook, and your knee might pop a couple of times, but suddenly you can spin around, and now you're in mount where you can start dropping bombs.
Right. Yeah.
Is it? When your knee pops, the fight isn't necessarily over. They don't just be like, oh, it's over. Because suddenly it looks like you just miraculously escaped, and now you're in a dominant position where you have an opportunity to finish the fight. How much will that play into? That's why there's so many questions. That's why I'm so, just pumped to see not just this combat jiu-jitsu, but to see how the combat jiu-jitsu is going to evolve over the next few events.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've seen firsthand since EBI 3. I think that the EBI flow of matches has changed quite a bit over the last couple of years since this has really been going on. And we've seen guys like Joe Soto come in and really, the Joe Soto EBI was interesting for me because Joe was in there really not having to respect the game of a lot of leg lockers, throughout the tournament. And then he got to
overtime.
No. Then he got to Eddie Cummings, and it was like, okay, you've walked through a lot of leg lockers, but you haven't faced Eddie Cummings, and Eddie got him out of there in like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, I felt
but you're right. The overtime thing with Joe, like he didn't respect the leg lock game. He survived, and ultimately, when it was done, he would get to overtime, and not many people are going to outposition Joe Soto. Joe's a good wrestler. Understands the fundamentals of positioning in jiu-jitsu, and I know he rubbed people the wrong way. I mean, he beat some studs to get to Eddie Cummings. I mean, he had a tough road to get to the final.
Meow.
Yeah,
but I think the thing was that people complained about, or at least that I was seeing him find a loophole in the rule where it's not as difficult to hold back position if you're not going for submissions. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so he was intentionally racking up the riding time.
Well,
but at the same time, the guys that he was going against were going for the submissions. He was defending the submissions and getting those quick escapes.
He was also being tactical. And, I mean, this goes back to our main event. That's what I meant.
It was kind of like a loophole that he was like, oh, look I figured out how I can use these rules to my advantage. And I don't think anyone else, either maybe they didn't think about it or they were just like, no, this is submission only. My job is to submit. But since then, I feel like, did they institute a policy?
There's a yellow card rule, I believe, that if Eddie or the referee, Eddie or Vic, feel that you're stalling, that should the match go to overtime, I'm giving you a yellow card, and I think it's 30 seconds will be added to your escape time. So going into the overtime period, right off the bat, you haven't even had an overtime round, you've already been controlled for 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a big thing. That's a real hard thing to overcome. But, you know, getting back to what Joe Soto did, Joe didn't do anything wrong. He was tactically found a way.
Yep.
And I like that. I like when a fighter is tactical. Again, going back to our main event, if Tyron Woodley was drawing the ire of the crowd inside T-Mobile Arena, I understand that. They came, they paid money, they wanted to see a fight. They wanted to see a definite conclusion. As much as the majority decision is a definite conclusion, it wasn't the one that they wanted. I understand that. But with that in mind, maybe Tyron Woodley doesn't have the moment he has in the 5th round if he doesn't play the game over the course of 23 minutes.
That was one thing we talked about during the fight was, well, maybe he's kind of lulling Thompson almost to sleep so that he can, because I feel like that's what he did to Robbie Lawler, was he got Robbie to where it was like, okay, is this fight going to start? Are we going to do anything?
Yeah.
I mean, boom, and it's over, you know? And so I kind of thought maybe that was his tactic, and it does provide for a boring fight. And really, like, as this was going on, I was thinking back because it's kind of the same karate style as when Machida fought Rashad Evans. If you remember Greg Jackson saying, you know, if Rashad wins this fight and sticks to the game plan, it's going to be a very boring fight. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
and I wonder if it wasn't similar tactic ideas. It didn't work for Rashad, but I wonder if it wasn't the same kind of thing.
I was going to try to get Dean Thomas on the air tonight, but we've pretty much run out of time. We do got to get going here. But it will be interesting to hear what someone like Dean has to say about the game plan, because while that's good in theory, in hindsight, looks like it was a good game plan, what Tyron Woodley did tonight. But if you look on the faces, and I think even hear the audio of Duke Rufus, when we get off the air here, I'm going to go back and turn on the fight because it'll be archived because we bought it for 24 hours. You can actually select the corner audio, and I would love to hear the corner audio of what Dean and Duke were saying to Tyron, because at the end of the fight, Duke was even saying, you could see it and hear it on camera just a little bit, going, it's going to come down to round 2. It's going to come down to round 2. If that was the plan, to sort of bide your time until you could explode the way that Tyron did, you don't want to drop as many rounds as Saul D'Amato did. You know what I mean? He gave 3 rounds to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Yeah. You want to make sure that at least one of those rounds you have, or 2 of those rounds that you have. I don't think you want to go into the third.
Or even try to steal those rounds, you know? Hit a takedown right at the end.
Last 90 seconds, let's try to get a takedown. Something, it's just, when you're fighting for that top prize, the best prize at 170 pounds, you don't want to dig a hole on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And
I see what you're saying.
I think that he'd done that a little bit, and I don't know. I've got some tweets, some things going on here. I'm not comfortable relaying some of it. Like I heard something from the athletic side, regulatory side, about the 10-8 round. I don't really want to read the tweet because I can't confirm it. It's very hard to see what's happening in the outside world as you and I are talking.
Oh, as far as what a 10-8 round is?
I'll tell you off the air because I just don't want to spread rumors. Apparently, someone in the commission may have had an issue with Saul D'Amato's card.
Okay. But is there a specific criteria as to what a 10-8 round is anywhere?
Again, I'll have to go look. I haven't. I mean, I'm switching this camera thing around, and I mean, too many things happening here. I need one other person that can kind of pull things up and sort of correct. We need a Tony Reale, which if you've ever watched Pardon the Interruption Around the Horn, you know what I'm talking about. I need someone to be able to do
your
whether
board
it's
off,
this,
your intern.
There's a lot of things going on in here. You know what I mean? And again, this is the first night. I mean, the first night that people can see us, this is a very exciting night. And I said it on the pre-show, and I don't know if everyone was listening, but 10 years ago today, March 4th, 2007, was the first day that the Sherdog Radio Network went live. So 10 years later, there's another first. We go live to video, and the circumstances couldn't be any different. Not in my mother's garage in Minnesota. You know, I'm 2 miles from the ocean here in LA, and pretty nice studio. You know, I like this place.
It's a lot better than that garage. That's
yeah,
for sure.
It is. It's nice. And, you know, I would never change. I mean, have you ever heard the song Little Room by the White Stripes?
Yeah, of course.
So when you're in a little room, you might not know what to do. So you got to think about getting a bigger room. And then when you're in the bigger room, you got to think about how you got started sitting in your little room. Everything has been a process. And I'm grateful for every single step of getting here. And, I mean, we've been in some bad rooms, really bad. I mean, I talk about the Sherdog Radio Network, and one of the biggest things that has happened for me personally, and we don't do it nearly enough as much as we should, but the fact that MMA Evolution is back means the world to me. I mean, You and I started this 13, 14 years ago, you know. And,
I was really happy that Mike Fridley remembered it. Did you hear him reference it earlier in the pre-show?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
I mean, MMA Evolution was just, I mean, really, MMA Evolution started on a very long road trip to a Shudo Americas card in Belleville, Illinois. And I had worked for a radio station in Minnesota. You had worked for a radio station, also in Minnesota. Minneapolis for me, Rochester, Minnesota for you.
Yep.
And I was like, we should do a radio show. That'd be fun. And again, podcasting wasn't a thing. Like, you couldn't go to Best Buy.
No, we literally had to record the MP3 file. Well, we recorded it to a DAT tape, right?
Yeah.
And then put it to an MP3 and then uploaded it where people could download it. You couldn't even
so this
stream
is what I had to do. I didn't even know how to record to MP3. So we recorded in a basically like what Adobe Audition is now.
Mm-hmm.
It's Cool Edit Pro. My radio station used something called a delete. We recorded into that, and then I burned it onto a CD, and it was very tricky because if we went over 80 minutes, I needed 2 CDs, so I needed to be strategic with how we would segment the breaks. So, because if we had a segment that went over the time without a break, it would just stop cold.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to make sure that if we went over 80 minutes, I could basically record the tracks differently. So we wouldn't go over the 80 minutes on one CD. And then I would rip them, which isn't even a word anymore. When's the last time anyone ripped a CD? Kids are like, what? Ripping? I don't know what that means. So we'd have to rip the CD.
Laptops now don't even have CD drives.
Yeah, so I had to rip the CD. And then once it was on my computer, I could make the 2 MP3s one. And then I would send to the website. And the website, there was no iTunes podcast area. So the website would put it on the homepage, and you would have to right-click Save Target As.
Yep.
And again, not many people had an iPod.
Well, not many people had cable fast internet either.
Right.
So they might have to download. It would take them like 3 days to
Take
get an
a while.
episode. You know, that's a huge file.
Yeah, I remember, again, I didn't really know what I was doing when it came to ripping the CD. So I had to do it in Real Player. Do you remember Real Player?
Yeah.
Is Real Player a thing anymore?
Yeah. It pretty much...
It turned into Rhapsody, right? Is Rhapsody a thing anymore?
That I don't think so. But I
Is
think
everything
Real Player
Spotify?
is. I use Spotify like crazy.
It's so weird because like I'm 33. I had to think about it. And like, I mean, I work in the tech world, quote unquote, essentially, right? Like, I mean, I'm sitting around, like, there's so many computers in here. I don't even know there's computers in here that are plugged in that don't even work, but they're still plugged in. Like, there's a computer graveyard and a huge server.
Earlier when you were like, you had like 4 mice, and you're trying to figure out which one worked on which computer.
It's true. And then for whatever reason, 2 mice were controlling one computer, which really I could not wrap my brain around, but we figured it out. And yeah, it's crazy. But like I'm so in touch with certain software, and then like have no idea how, anything works in other areas. Like again, Real Player. Like QuickTime. Is QuickTime still a thing?
Yeah, you have to update QuickTime every time you do an iTunes update.
So, but does anyone use it? That's my question.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
never.
Yeah, it's just like
I don't even know what it does.
Right. It blew my mind that Hotmail's not a thing anymore. Like you
What are you
can't go.
talking about? I got a Hotmail.
Yeah, but you can't go to hotmail.com and log in.
Yes, you can.
No, you cannot.
Yes, I do it all the time.
No, you go to msn.com. You just don't realize it.
Well, it redirects you.
Right. There's no hotmail.com.
They had to cut off. There's only so many OGs left in this world.
I don't even know. I mean, that's the thing, too. So, like, every podcast I do has to have a different email address. I've got, like, 6 different email addresses. I got one for the Laps fan.
They're all through Sherdog, right?
No, they're all through Gmail for the, so, like, I've got an Anakin Florian one. I've got a Morning Wood Show one for Tyron and Dean. I've got the Laps fan. I've got, my normal email. I've got a TJ DeSantis Productions email. God forbid they all have the same password, too. So when I try to log into one, I'm like, I don't even try to put in a password. I just click forgot password. Because there's no point playing that game. So, yeah. I don't know. If you want to call us, 844-SHERDOG is the number. 844-743-7364. You're going to have to get in, like, right now.
I forgot to mention Nathan Orchard. He's the other guy. Remember I was saying there was 4 ones that I was excited for? Nathan Orchard's the other one.
And I believe he won, like, a 10th Planet qualifier to get in, which is super neat. I mean, that's another thing. I watched the 10th Planet qualifier on Eddie Bravo's Instagram. Like, he's just hanging out in the gym with his phone on.
Was it like a live feed?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. It's amazing. You and I are going to do a live Instagram before we leave to tell everyone about this show. Because I've never done a live Instagram before. It'll be fun. We'll do it together.
Brand new to me.
Yeah, it's exciting business. So, all right. I'm going to make people look at the phones. See, nothing's blinking there. I'm not leaving anyone on hold. I'm loading up our talk bed here. And if I don't get a call in the next 30 seconds, we're going to bail. 844-SHERDOG. It is 844-743-7364. I love the little artistic shot over here because I can put my domo. I like my little domo guy. He's awesome. Oliver got him for me. Because everyone's like, oh, you're a DJ, right? Did I ever tell you the story about my English? I was telling you the story about my English teacher earlier today that basically made it for me to graduate. She hit me up like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. It's like, hey, one of my students really wants to be a DJ. Can you talk to him?
That's awesome.
So I'm like, yeah, that'll be great. I'll tell your young, impressionable teenager that wants to be a DJ that he should not want to be a DJ because the radio business is dead. It's going to be terrible. You don't understand. So he starts asking me questions, and I'm like, these are really weird questions. Like, what do I wear when I do a show? Whatever I want to. It's not like anyone can see me.
Until today.
And then he said, when you make your mixes. Yeah. He wants to be Skrillex.
Yeah. I was thinking more along the lines of like Marshmello or Deadmau5 because they wear the prosthetics, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't want to hit the post.
You know, I believe that was her fault, not yours.
Kids today don't know what...
As an English teacher, she should understand context, you know?
It's true. But DJs don't do anything with discs, period.
No.
Except I don't know, if you actually... I don't know.
No, it's actually...
It's all
like
digital, right?
Yeah, 2 digital files, and then they have like a manipulative key scratch pad and stuff.
Right.
It's pretty neat, but...
All right, as you can tell, no one's calling. So that gives me a license to go home and try to get some sleep here before EBI 11, which just tomorrow. You're going to be there, Mr. Quinn.
I am.
If anyone's listening, come say hi. Be nice to meet people.
You can do like Where's Waldo on Fight Pass and see if you can find me out in the crowd there somewhere. No, there's going to be plenty of action. You won't want to look into the crowd.
Only if you wear a red and white sweater and a stocking cap. Does Waldo wear a cap? Yeah, it's a stocking cap, right? And he's got glasses on.
He had glasses just like yours.
Yeah. You have no idea how blind I am. I had no idea how blind I was. We went to the doctor or whatever, the eye doctor, and Melissa's like, yeah, I'm getting my eyes checked. Might as well get Oliver's checked. And I'm like, okay, well, as long as everyone's getting their eyes checked, I'm pretty sure my eyes are fine. No, my eyes are the worst. It's not good. And then, like, I started driving at night because apparently I'm night blind. I was like, oh, shit, texture is a thing. Like, I can actually see, like, wow. It's not just, like, you know how you taste something that you haven't had food for a really long time, like a certain type of food, and then you taste it again, and you're like, well, this is great. I haven't had this in a minute. This is good.
Oh, throwback Mountain Dew.
Right. It was like that for me with vision. Because I was like, oh, yeah, I remember this. I remember how I used to be able to see, and then now I can't. So, like, I have a larger TV in my living room. I couldn't see the guide on the damn couch. So I had to sit up and walk halfway across the room to see a 60-inch television where there's font on the thing.
See, that's rich people problems.
That's not rich people problems.
When your TV's far enough where you even have to walk halfway through the room, it's too big.
Rich people can buy a bigger television, okay?
It's not the TV's fault.
I know.
Your room is probably huge.
It's not that big. I can't see. That's my problem. I can't see. And it was very apparent. And then I had to buy 3 pairs of glasses because none of us can see. So, there you go. If you missed any part of the show, all access panel at Sherdog.com, iTunes Music Store under podcasts. Over there at Sherdog.com, you're going to be able to see the SoundCloud page where you can listen like you normally do. But there will also be a YouTube player. Should you want to check this out without going to Sherdog.com, I don't know what the URL is exactly for YouTube, but Sherdog does have a page, and there you will find the archives, I guess, going forward of this radio show and the other radio shows that we do on video. For sure, we'll do Beatdown After the Bell on video. I think we'll do some beatdowns with Mike Fridley on video. A lot of things will be for you on video, and as many as possible. And, a lot of things coming up on video. Eve Edwards, I do a podcast for him. That's on video. Ian McCall, Storytime, that will soon be on video. So a lot of things coming your way on the video front. And pardon the technical issues that we may have as we get used to this stuff. It's, again, I'm not a great multitasker, and I'm trying to multitask right now and get my disclaimer working. And I'm telling you because I don't know what to say anymore, and I'm just stalling for time. So
maybe you have a better way of doing this, though, because I've always had trouble listening to the Sherdog shows on my phone. And so, like, you know how you can go to, like, Sherdog.com/radio, and it'll bring you up everything on your computer?
Yeah, you're
on the phone, it doesn't do that. You have to go to the desktop
The
version.
mobile website is broken.
Yeah.
This is bane of my existence. Then people are like, oh, well, we'll get it on the app. No.
So what do you recommend for us?
Mixler to listen live. Mixler.com. Oh, jeez, it's not over yet. See? Terrible stoppage. Stop it. Where is it? Hang on. See what you did to me? You asked another question. Terrible.
I was trying to fill time.
I know. Dang it.
I can't see the post over here. That's
There's again, I'm typing things into the wrong keyboard, and everyone can see my misery. See, this is why I'm willing to say this. I've never said this in my entire life, Caleb, ever. I need a board op.
Yeah. I feel like you're at the level where you should have one.
I don't like that.
If you look at I look at the people like Adam Carolla.
I know.
I bet she's got like 22 people who produce his shows.
You don't understand though. Running the board has been a pride for me.
Oh, I understand. I completely understand.
And I like to think that I'm a good board op, So the minute someone has dead air, I'm going to sit over there and rage is just going to spread over my face.
Take all of that and then think about how I feel every time I need to put in for a substitute teacher for my class.
Lord.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you're in the area and you want to get yelled at when you screw up my board, TJ DeSantis at Sherdog.com. Would love to have you. Or at least would love to have somebody over there doing research for me, telling me who Fight Night bonus winners are.
Getting soda, getting food deliveries.
Yeah.
The basic intern things.
I did a lot of those things. Like wearing a diaper full of chili, going to prom with dancers. Normal intern things. All right. Again, any part of the show you miss, all access panel at Sherdog.com, iTunes Music Store, under podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you join me tomorrow on UFC Fight Pass for EBI 11. The welterweights. Gordon Ryan looked to capture his third EBI championship, one that has been vacated by his teammate in the one and only Gary Tonin. So please, tomorrow, 6 in the West, 9 in the East. UFCFightPass.com, EBI 11. It is all about the welterweights. For Caleb Quinn, I'm TJ DeSantis. He just got beat down on the Sherdog Radio Network. Have a great evening, everybody.
The preceding show is a TJ DeSantis production and is property of the Sherdog Radio Network. Its content is intended for private use only.